The day began like any other in the small town of Brooksville. The sun rose lazily over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the sleepy streets and waking the town with a gentle warmth. Birds chirped in the trees lining the quiet lanes, their song a familiar prelude to the hustle and bustle of daily life. Emma Mathers, a 30-year-old schoolteacher, pulled her hair into a neat ponytail as she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was preparing for another day of shaping young minds at Brooksville Elementary. Her thoughts wandered to her husband, John, who had left early for his construction job. They had been married for 8 years, and their life together was comfortable, if not predictable. As Emma walked into her classroom, the familiar sights and sounds brought a smile to her face. Children chattered excitedly, sharing stories of their weekend adventures. She loved her job and found immense joy in seeing her students grow and learn. Today, however, a strange sense of unease gnawed at the edges of her mind. During lunch break, Emma's phone buzzed with a text message from her best friend, Lisa. "We need to talk. Can you meet me at the cafe after school?" It read. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Lisa's messages were usually filled with emojis and exclamation points, but this one was starkly different. Something was wrong. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. Emma couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in her chest. She finished her lessons mechanically, her mind preoccupied with worry. When the final bell rang, she hurried to the cafe, her stomach twisting in knots. Lisa was already there, seated at a corner table. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red-rimmed. Emma slid into the seat opposite her, concern etched on her face. "What's wrong, Lisa?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lisa took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she reached for her coffee. "It's John," she said, her voice cracking. "I saw him today, with another woman." Emma's world tilted on its axis. The words echoed in her mind, but they didn't make sense. John, her John, would never betray her. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice shaking. Lisa nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I didn't want to believe it either, but I saw them together, and they looked intimate." Emma felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her feet. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The cafe walls seemed to close in around her, and the once comforting chatter of patrons became an unbearable roar. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I have to go," she mumbled, barely aware of her own movements. She stumbled out of the cafe, her vision blurred by tears. Emma drove home in a daze, her mind replaying Lisa's words over and over. She arrived at their house, a modest 2-story with a white picket fence, and parked in the driveway. For a moment, she just sat there, gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. When she finally gathered the courage to go inside, she found John in the living room, watching TV. He looked up and smiled, but his smile faltered when he saw her tear-streaked face. "Emma, what's wrong?" he asked, standing up and moving towards her. She took a step back, her voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and anger. "I know about the other woman, John. How could you do this to me?" John's face went pale, and he opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence stretched between them, heavy and oppressive. Emma's world had shattered in an instant. The promises they had made to each other, the dreams they had shared, all lay in ruins at her feet. She turned and walked out the door, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her shoulders. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the quiet street. Emma looked up at the sky, her heart breaking. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. As she walked away from the life she had known, Emma felt a strange sense of clarity. The promises had been shattered, but she would find a way to pick up the pieces. She would heal, and she would move forward. One step at a time.